Truth Talks. Please, I'm excited about the Truth Talks. They are addressing true fellowship and what it means, what true fellowship and corporate worship looks like according to the Bible.
I will sing to the old rugged cross, and exchange it someday for a crown.
How many of us got to at least get to Judges chapter 5 or the rest of chapter 4?
Andy's raising his hand.
Okay. All right, then. I guess I just have to keep going money log then until we get it. Let us, if you could just meet me at Judges chapter 4. And we stopped last week at verse 11. The question was, why was verse 11 just dropped in there? It seemed like an odd scripture. And I shared with us last week how God is sovereign, even in the details of where we live. Because when Moses was going to Canaan earlier, he meets some Canaanites.
Mhm.
And it was Habor he met. And then he has a son, of course, named Heber, who moves away from the Canaanites. And it has happened to be a place where this chapter 4 is going to kind of culminate. And so we read in the verse 11, we're just going to get on into verse 12 after I get through here, of how God takes all that we do, where we work, where we live, what jobs we have, where we fellowship at. He takes all of that and sovereignly moves about his will in our lives. His will in our lives. And so he does the same thing here. We're going to find out the place where he moved Heber to is the place where the commander of Jabin's army runs to. Okay? And that's how the story ends with that. So we're going to read further down, and we're just kind of going to talk about it for those of us who looked at it. If not, then I'll just move straight forward with it. So if I can just get a reader here in verse 12 of chapter 4. Well, I'll tell you what, let's read verse 10, then read verse 12. That would make sense.
Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together to Kadesh. 10,000 men went up with him. Deborah also went up with him.
And then read 12 and 13.
And they told Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. Sisera called together all his chariots, 900 iron chariots, and all the people who were with him from Horesheth Hagoyim to the river Kishon.
Now remember, 10,000 men, 900 chariots. These chariots are armor plated, and they got men with them. They got men on foot. Humanly speaking, there's no match. Hands down, they would overrun Barak now. Okay, but if you look at verse 14, if you look at verse 14, Deborah said to Barak, "Arise." Okay, which seems, humanly speaking, for us, seems like what? An opportunity for her. Remember, she's a prophet, so she hears from God. She speaks to the people, and them knowing that she's a prophet, they move on her commands. Remember, we told you earlier that she told Barak to go fight, and he said, if you go with me, and we just discovered that, hey, if God said it, we don't need to have any backup plan, but nevertheless, she went with him because as Eric had brought out last week, that maybe he feels safe because if she's hearing from God, it's like when they had the Ark of the Covenant. They figured God was with him, and he would be saved. So we see it being played out here. And she tells him in verse 14, she says, "What? Arise, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sarah into your hands. Behold, the Lord has gone out before you." I mean, those are some good words, yes.
Well, see, but she already preluded that was in verse 7 when he said, you know, when he was not arguing with him, but she told him how to deploy. Will deploy Sarah and the commander of the Jib arm will the chariot. Talk about chariots again, right? In
Mhm.
7, that's where they introduced it. It said, at the river, I will deliver him into your hands. See,
Right.
that's not the first time. This is the second time she said he's going to deliver you into your
Right.
hand.
And then she calling for that moment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But look how she used it. What she say the Lord's going to be doing this battle?
Well, the Lord's going to deliver, has delivered,
Yeah,
has
But
delivered.
where's he going to be doing this battle?
In front of you.
He's going to go out before him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of God we serve. He goes before us. You know, we're going to find out, probably get to it tonight on the 2nd Chronicles, where he says the battle is the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get ready to fight a battle, and he just tells them, this is my battle. So we'll find out, what does the king do? You know, he just gets up and get his little band together, music, and tell them just go stand there and play music. What a way to fight a battle, you know? No guns, no knives, no nothing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, but here she says, the Lord has went before you. It speaks of a military commander marching in front of his troops, you know? When the Lord comes back after the millennium, when he rounds up all the nations, it says we will be with him all arrayed in white.
Mm-hmm.
Who goes to battle in white unless they're fighting in Alaska somewhere?
Nobody goes in battle in white. They're
Huh?
sitting there to witness it. They're not
Yeah,
going
we're
to
gonna be
battle.
all arrayed in white and say the Lord's gonna come out and he's gonna slay them with his mouth. We're not gonna fight. The Lord's gonna fight, and that's what really is gonna happen here. You know. And so she pictures that when she says, in 7, the Lord has given them over your hands. And then she basically tells him, now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, behold, like, wow. I like to see the word behold in the scriptures. Wow. You know, the Lord has gone out before you. So before you even get to the battlefield, he's there.
Well, mine says, has not the Lord gone out before you? That's
Either way.
either
Before
way.
you get there, he's already there.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
so verse 15 and 16. Verse 15 is very interesting. Who have a King James for verse 15 and 16? Okay, go ahead.
Verse 15 and 16.
Mhm.
And the Lord discomfited Sisera and all his chariots and all his hosts with the edge of the sword before Barak, so that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harshit
Go ahead. Go ahead.
of the Gentiles, and all the hosts of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left.
There was not a man left. What 15 is actually telling them was the Lord throw confusion. Okay. Now remember I told y'all chapter 5 is actually a commentary to
Mhm.
chapter 4.
mm-hmm.
You want to know what really happened here?
Read chapter
Let's go
5.
let's go look at the commentary. Go look at chapter 5, verse 20 and 22.
It's 20 and 22.
And we're gonna get to that when we get to chapter 5. Just that if I was to just, I want us to read the commentary on here.
Okay.
Now, remember, chapter 5 actually just threshes out where we can really understand chapter 4, because we'll just read chapter 4. We got a lot of guesswork. Okay. Read verses 20 to 22 of chapter 5.
The torrent of Kishon swept them away. And the ancient
It was the
torrent,
Kishon River.
in the
Okay.
ancient,
Go ahead.
in the ancient torrent, the torrent of Kishon. Oh, my soul, march on in strength. Then the horse's hooves pounded.
Okay. Now she's singing a song on Barak.
Mhm.
Okay. When did we see this done before?
With the
Jericho.
I mean, earlier, and we talked. Who we see singing a song after the war?
Miriam. You talking about Miriam's?
Remember Moses when he crossed the Red Sea?
Right.
That
Exodus
the
15?
Miriam song.
This is what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, praise after something has been done. Okay, go ahead. So this is a praise, and so in this praise, it's a commentary of chapter 4. Go ahead.
Then the horses' hooves pounded, the galloping of his steeds. That's in the 22.
Okay, so what we see here is the Lord has control over the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Just like he had control over the sea, he has control over the weather. Remember, 900 chariots. They couldn't fight in the hills. They was in the valley. And so they figured they had the upper hand. And you know, they also had the God of the weather, where they God supposedly can deal with the weather. Where God shows sovereignly here that he controls the weather. Because now they got their chariots down there, they're ready, and all of a sudden they see the stars, it look like the sky's clear, and we have a downpour. And we have a river flooding. And those who own chariots and they got their horses can't move like they're supposed to move. And God throws confusion. What do you mean by the Lord routed? He throw confusions, and then they killed each other.
Now, this rain, which nobody foresaw except for God gave it, was during a dry season.
Right. I forgot
Okay.
to mention it. Yeah, it was doing
It
a
was
dry,
a dry
that's what I
season.
mentioned the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Be-
So to them, they had it won.
Mm-hmm. Because they knew if they knew the rain was going to come, then he wouldn't have took his chariots down there. He would took his men off the chariots.
Right. And the church became a hindrance to them. You
Mm.
see any notes up there?
Yeah, I see it. What you say, babe? A blinding
And
rain.
so this
A blinding rain. Okay.
God used the natural forces of weather to fight this war for them, and they really didn't have to lift a hand. They showed up, seemingly to fight the war. Hands down, they would have lost, you know. But as you said, the Lord has gone out before it. Any comments on that?
Like you said, God, he controls everything. Yeah.
Sometimes he uses human agencies to get it done, and sometimes he steps in and do it himself. It's the unique thing about this is we're gonna see when we get to chapter 5 that it wasn't only Barak and these people were supposed to go fight. There was a lot of other nations that were supposed to go fight as well. Everybody didn't show up to the border.
No. Yeah, Reuben.
That's
didn't show
another
up.
reason why they couldn't have won.
Mhm.
So when this war is summoned, a whole lot of other tribes were supposed to show up, but they did. And amazingly, when we get to chapter 5 and start talking about it, I want to kind of make it transparent to people in the church.
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you something. Spiritual warfare, we'll see that when they sing the songs, we see spiritual warfare. We say we sing because we're happy, we sing because we're glad, but singing is a type of warfare. Yeah.
Because you lift up praise the Lord too.
Verse 17.
17, Harris.
Now, who is Sisera?
Sarah.
He's the commander in the army. Who's Jabin?
He was the king.
The king of who?
Sarah.
Hazor, right?
Hazor.
Okay, remember Hazor was burnt down to powder. 100 years later, they choose a king. They build this city again without any interventions from the nation Israel, and they appoint a king, and they oppresses them. And we're gonna see the type of oppression in the song that they did to them.
Well, in the song, well, we're not there yet, but I'm gonna tell you in the song, it mentions that she thinks Deborah's, we see her as a prophet, right? And a judge, but she's actually see herself as a mother.
Right.
Okay.
And she get that term from God, which we'll get to when we get to 5. Now, those of us who live in Philly and those of us who live in Chicago gonna kind of be able to in Dallas is gonna get to kind of see through the song, what these people were probably going through. That's the kind of oppression they had. Okay, now I just kind of put that out there so y'all show up next week. We don't get to it. Okay, verse 7. 17.
However, Sarah has fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber, the Kenite. For there was peace between Jebah king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite.
Okay. There were peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber.
The Kenites, yep.
The Kenites, yeah, but
Yeah, the house of Heber.
even though he moved, that wasn't supposed to be. That was a problem. The problem was Heber was friends or had peace with Jabin, who was the king of Hazor, who was oppressing them. He was a relative of Moses. His father, his ancestors saw what happened and how God had led them through wars. But Jael was faithful. Now, I don't know if the Lord led her to do this, but think about it. Jael, I don't know what Hebrew was, but Jael was faithful. Whenever you're in a household, woman or man, and you have someone living with you that's unfaithful to the Lord, we don't get a pass to be unfaithful on their behalf. Remember, these people are fighting against God's people. These people run to this one commander runs to a household that have seen the work of the Lord. And he thinks that he can find comfort there.
What he considers a refuge. Yeah,
He considered her husband's friend.
a refuge.
Mm-hmm. And the wife didn't see it that was supposed to be. So I don't know where Heber was, but when he ran to the house, the scripture says that she welcomed him in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you remember the prophecy that Deborah made when Barak said, "Go with me,"
Yeah.
what was the promise?
That he would not get the glory, but the woman will.
You're right, right. The woman will. This woman house, Jael, is the woman that will get the glory, not Deborah. Because this woman is the one that's going to kill the commander of Jabin's army, Heber's wife. But the way it happened is he thinks he's going into a friendly's home. So just a note, okay?
But yeah, because you see that in verse 18 as what the thought is behind things.
Let's see. Let's read verse 18.
And Jael went out to meet Sarah and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me, do not fear." And when he had turned aside with her into the tent, she covered him with a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead.
She said, "Do not fear." Then he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." So she opened a jar of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again.
Go ahead.
And he said to her, "Stand at the door of the tent, and if any man comes inquire of you and says, 'Is there any man here?' you shall say, 'No.'"
And he's a commander of the army, right? So he thinks he's still running a command here, okay? And she gave him what?
Milk.
Milk. Okay, so milk puts the baby to what?
Sleep.
Okay, verse 21.
Baby sleep.
Verse 21.
Okay. Now Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him. She snuck up on him, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And drove the peg into his temple, and it went down into the ground where he was fast asleep and weary, so he died. Now, think about this. Okay. No,
Yeah.
it ain't the fact that it was a long peg. It's 10 stake. Because you're probably going to cover this anyway, but remember, you have to understand that the women are the ones that were putting the tents up.
They were the
and
one who put the tents up, so
tents
she was
down.
good with it, yes.
She was a woman of a hammer. She was a woman
Don't
of
y'all
a
get no
hammer.
ideas.
Okay.
I just made up Isaiah's bedroom, put a lock on the door last night.
Okay. So the peg, like you said, it's tent peg. They had to be long to keep the tents up because they're not little tents. These are big tents. But she snuck up on him. But guess what? He was sound asleep because he felt secure and safe.
And remember, he just got through running. Remember, all the people of his army got killed. He jumped off of his chariot. He's running. He's the only one left. Remember earlier, said everybody else had died. He's the only one left. and he's running, he's tired, he goes where he thinks is safety, and he commands her basically in a nice way, stand at the door. So he put his total trust in her.
Now, when he said, tell them no for, if you, yeah, it is there any man here, you should say no. Then she probably picked up on one thing, that he done fled the battle.
Yeah. She knows.
Okay,
It's gonna be proof in a minute here.
okay.
Yeah.
Prove it in the pudding.
She made him a permanent fixture to the inside of the tent, huh? Yeah. This nail was pretty long, like Eric said, and it was one that they used to hold the tent stuff. It wasn't like a little TP tent we use in the military.
No.
This was a tent that was their house. It was probably bigger than this room here. They cooking in there, they did the washing or whatever. They had their own type of furniture. It was like a house. Okay? So if her husband would have been around, which he's not in the picture, I don't know if he had passed on or what, this probably wouldn't have happened. But God again orchestrated when these people moved here, this war would happen. And this happening right now fulfilled verse 9, I believe it was.
Verse 9.
Yeah, read
Yeah.
verse 9.
Okay.
Just had the broadcast to go with it.
So she said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, there will be no glory for you in the journey you are taking, for the Lord will sell Sarah into the hand of a woman.
And right what we just read here in the later verses was a fulfillment of that prophet. She was a prophetess. Okay?
He prophesied with God.
Can we use this chapter to teach the woman can be pastors? This has nothing to do with that. And we talked about the three offices, right?
Mhm.
Prophet, priest, and king.
Right.
You'll never see a woman as a what?
Priest.
Okay. Okay. So the story is over, but the war is not over because we still got somebody else to get.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get Jabin. Read verse 23 and 24, and we'll move on to chapter 5.
Oh, we skipping 22? We will though.
Just read all the way down. Yeah, okay, read 22. You want to see if I can squeeze somebody in here. Just read verse 22. I'm gonna show you how the Lord has given to me. Read verse 22. Go ahead.
Then as Barak pursued Sarah, Jael came out to meet him and said to him, come, I will show you the man whom you seek.
Okay, how can I exegete this?
Okay.
He tells me. See, I'm gonna squeeze some out of it.
Well, you want the rest of the verse, or you gonna
Go
squeeze
ahead.
out of that? Okay. And when he went into her tent, there lay Sarah dead with a peg in his temple.
Okay. Let's see how I can exegete this text here.
Simple fact
Now-
of life. I'm showing the proof. Yes.
Yeah. That proves that, but watch this here now. Look what you says. Come, and I will show you
The
the
man.
man who
whom
you
you
are
seek.
seeking.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us?
Oh, he said,
Eric shows up at my house, right? Come on in, Eric. Let me show you what the Lord has done in here. Remember, the Lord was out before them.
yes.
These were their enemies. Prophecy was fulfilled because Deborah was a prophetess, and prophecy was fulfilled through and by Jael. And God gave the prophecy to Deborah. And if this wouldn't have happened, Deborah would have been a lying prophet. Because if a prophecy didn't come to pass, he was considered a lying prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So once she said it, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Did I squeeze enough out of that?
Yeah, you done.
All right.
Okay. 23. And so on that day, God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, in the presence of the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan.
Now, if they would have been pursuing like this the whole time, they wouldn't have never had this problem. The hands of them grew stronger and stronger. They was persistent. Had they been persistent, the king of Hazor wouldn't have never took Hazor and built it again, and they wouldn't have had this problem. See, the reason they couldn't run the Canaanites out, because it was persistent in staying there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that it happened because they weren't persistent in keeping him out. You know, in their walk with the Lord and their commandment, he wanted them to be persistent. He wanted those people out of there. But because they decided to make them neighbors and friends, you know, God used those same people to oppress him. Now we get to chapter 5.
So,
Al,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know it does it in the New Testament too, but it's worth noticing that the Old Testament always reminds us who is performing work. Like even in 23 it says, so God subdued on that date. You notice how they mention all these kings and they mention the woman that took care of this, and we see all the characters in a play, but it's important for us to realize that just like God was the one at work in the Old Testament fighting battles, he's the same God who is at work now fighting battles for us.
You know, see, he was
Mm.
looking at my tablet.
yeah, I saw him looking at
Right
your tablet
there.
back there. Yeah, I you said it. I wasn't
Because
gonna.
I'm gonna tell you something.
I wasn't gonna complain.
That's good observation. I know you didn't see that, but that is threshed out in chapter 5. We're going to see that we can't have Barak and Deborah put up on the pedestal as though they did all this. Because it's God that did the commissioning. Apart from God, Deborah wouldn't have never knew to tell Barak to get up. You know, apart from God, Barak wouldn't have never knew to go get the other people to go fight. And so it is God at work here. And it hadn't changed since. God is the one that's work here at Prayer Foundation Fellowship. But he works through the leaders. He works through the members of the church. He orchestrates this whole thing. This is why I said that Barak's seeing himself as weak and little, you know? And when we see ourselves as that, not thinking little of ourselves, that's when we can best be used of God. Imagine if you was to pick up a gun to go shoot it and the gun is wiggling in your hand. So, no, I want to shoot. It's because the gun is totally submitted. I mean, in a way, you know, you're able to make the best use out of the gun. And so we are the same way in the hand of the Lord. When we're mostly submitted, it's when we're most seeing ourselves as vulnerable unless the Lord has got his hand on us. Now, verse 5, when we get into that, it's still about Barak and Deborah, but in a different way. You know, they're in a battle. The war is over. It's a battle of worship and praise, adoration, and singing. This entire chapter is a song.
Yes, it is.
And when you look at it like that, you'll see it's a song after they see what the Lord has done. Look at the way the song is sung. It's not about them, it's about what the Lord has done. You know, we try to cater our songs that way, even in our books. You know, when we moved out of the house, we thought about where the Lord has brought us from, not of our own doings. And so they see here the battle is over, but we're going to find out for us on here that it's not always when the battle is over that we sing. We're going to see in here that she invites kings and rulers to hear the song. Verse 1.
Got you. Then Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang on that day, saying that the leaders led in Israel, that the people volunteered. Bless the Lord.
Okay, so we got something happen, something triggered the song, something caused them to break out and worship. And again, as we study chapter 4, we see again, like the victory is over, they sing the song. So the thing that caused them to sing the song was what? One word. Victory, deliverance. The very last thing that they saw before chapter 5 was Jabin was dethroned or destroyed. Their deliverance caused them to worship, but they didn't be bothered with him no more. Their salvation caused them to praise, and this wasn't just some isolated experience. And they know what had happened was by a miracle. Again, Exodus 15, we talked about it. When the sea parted, they got to the other side because of their deliverance. They understood the magnitude of their deliverance. There was no way they could have got across their water. They began to sing and praise God. Isn't it like that in our salvation? There was no way out. If we understand depravity and we understand where we're at now, it'll cause one to break out in praise. So an entire people sang with Moses. Those who sing unto God are often those who experience salvation in God. Let's look at Psalms 29, Proverbs 29:6. Proverbs 29:6. You know, this is why teaching is so, it is so prevalent in the church. It's one thing to witness to a person, they get saved, but when you start teaching that person what they were saved from and who they were saved from, the penalty of sin. If we understand what the penalty of sin was, the power of sin, if we understood what the power that sin had over us, the wrath of God, if we really understood that, and that's why we go back and teach those things, because when we really understand, well, the mess that we was in and what was due us, it'll make you sing. This is why we got songs. What do Proverbs 29:6 say? Proverbs 29:6.
Go ahead, Eric.
These are NASB. By transgression, one evil man is ensnared, but the righteous sings and rejoices.
An evil man is ensnared.
Mhm.
And say, a righteous man what?
Sings.
Righteous man sings and rejoices.
Look at the, it's like a left and a right. An evil man is ensnared. It's like his soul is choked. He's ensnared. His soul is chained. His soul is trapped. In his sin, he cannot sing. There is no joy. There's no soulless praise because his soul is trapped. If we ever get an unbeliever in here and we're singing, what? It's like they're just trapped. They can't sing. That's the picture here. His soul is, not that he don't know the songs. He can't sing. He's trapped. And to an extent, a new believer who don't understand salvation, they have a sense of, though they're free, they're trapped because what are we praising for? Those people that was on the other side of the Red Sea, they saw Pharaoh coming. And they looking, and all of a sudden this water's here and they couldn't go anywhere. And all of a sudden they see balls of fire. And I don't know how long this stuff was, but the water stands up like a wall. And they walked through and they weren't stepping on mud. They say the ground was dry. There was no way. They was in a mess. They was as good as gone. They seen this. This is why they joined in with Moses singing. Think about it. Moses didn't have to get to the other side and teach them what had happened. They saw it and they experienced it. And so when we experience salvation and we are taught the depth of the doctrines of the scriptures, we can't help but to break out in praise. But a person that doesn't experience that, they have no soulish praise about it because they're still ensnared. What does it say about the righteous man?
Sings and rejoices.
He rejoices. He has been delivered from the transgressions of sin and power of the flesh. He can sing and rejoice. They know to sing unto God because they know salvation is in God. That's the difference. the contents of chapter 5 is the victory of chapter 4, which they experienced. Not that Deborah, like you said, and Barak did this. They're singing this unto the Lord. See, they understand that the victory was total God. It was totally of God. From the commissioning, it was God. From the empowerment, it was God. To the deliverance, it was all God. And chapter 5 shows how this is done. Let's read, let's read verse 5 of, we're going to kind of skip around here, okay? Let's read verse 6 of chapter 5. We're just going to skip around. We're not going to do all the verses. So we can see when this was happening.
In the day of Shamgar, son of Anas, in the day of Joel, the highway was deserted and the travelers walked along the byway.
Okay, now look at, go back to chapter 3, verse 30.
Verse 30?
Yeah, you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now you see chapter 4, verse 1?
Oh, you said 3:30, right?
Yeah, 3:30.
You want me to read that?
No, don't read it.
Okay. The 4:1?
And 4:1, you see that? In between now, who was the deliverer?
3:30.
Shamgar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's during his time. Now let's go back and read chapter 5, verse 6.
In the day of Shamgar, son of Anak, in the day of Joel, the highways were deserted, and the travelers walked along the byways.
The highways was deserted. The travelers would go through the woods or through the byways to get to where they wanted to go. Why? Because they was occupied and terrorized by thieves, robbers, Canaanites, maybe rapists. The people wouldn't even travel those roads. Don't it remind us of some cities around here? Yeah. Southside Chicago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of oppression they had. Imagine your normal route to go to work. You will waste another 5 gallons of gas. Well, they was walking back then. You will walk out of the way to get to where you want to go because somebody was going to rob you, or rape you. So they would take the long way around. They wouldn't take the main path. Their daily lives was affected by this stuff. Verse 7 of 5.
Village life ceased. It ceased in Israel until I, Deborah, arose a mother in Israel.
Very interesting. So, what side of Chicago you say that people was moving out of?
West side.
Okay, so it'd be like the west side of Chicago ceasing and everybody going over to the east side. That's what was going on over here. So it wasn't that they was taking the people and whooping them with chains and making them slaves. Life had just become uncomfortable for 20 years. This was going on. But it gets worse because after something goes on for so long, people get tired of you fighting back. So they have their way of disarming you. Was the Second Amendment right to bear arms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Homes were broken into.
Mm-hmm.
Things were being stolen. People were being kidnapped. Again, maybe raped. It was a dangerous place they had grew up in. Read verse 8.
Oh, yeah. They chose new gods.
Read on.
Then there was war in the gates. Not a shield or spear was seen among 40,000 in Israel.
I wonder why.
Because they were taken away.
They were taken away. Not even as much as a kitchen knife. They're breaking these people's homes. Spears, knives, forks, anything they can use to defend themselves. Imagine us being the man of the house, and people just coming in our house taking stuff. We have nothing to defend our wives and our kids with. You know, I'm ready to fight as long as I have a gun or a knife. You know, things has gotten so bad, not the police, but the very people who's going to come back and rob us and do what they want to do to make life easier for them have taken everything that I have. This is the kind of oppression they had for 20 years. They didn't have the local dollar store they can go down there and buy another knife. Yeah,
It says they chose new gods, right?
yeah, we're going to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm going to tell you to read 8B, but you really don't read the whole thing.
No, you told me read 8. I read 8. Now,
Well, I'm
they
gonna tell you-
chose new gods, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Once they chose new god, they gave up their weapons, their shields and stuff. Did they give that to them as treasure to the idols, new
Nope.
gods, or they were taking?
They chose their choosing of their new gods is why they was going through what they was going through.
Yeah.
That was the reason why they was going through what they was going through, because they chose new gods.
They just did it
So-
again here, BJ.
What?
Remember, I was just about to
That's
bring
why
out
I was
that
gonna come
point.
back to
All
that.
of this oppression, all of this oppression and pressure they're under, it's a
Because they
result
chose
of,
new
it's a
gods.
direct result of disobedience.
Right.
So they're just doing, once again,
Over
they're
and
just
over.
doing it again.
Yeah,
Over and over.
Yeah, I was going to unfold it at
All
the end
over.
so you can get it.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
doing it again, BJ.
But the reason why they was going through what they was going through is because they chose new gods.
Erase what I said and we'll go ahead. Just go ahead. But
So
it's
they
amazing,
go ahead.
excuse me, but it's amazing as we see this play out. And it's not only here, but as it plays out throughout all the Judges itself.
Yes, this is
Yes, sir.
why.
And see,
Remember, I told y'all a couple weeks ago when they were supposed to move some people out, they decided to have them as neighbors, have
mhm,
them work for them. Their young boys and girls got to liking their young boys and girls. Then they gave their daughters and sons up to marry each other, and they grew up that way. Okay, and what the Lord did was He just sold them over to them, and they oppressed them.
mhm. Okay.
But what we see here is not just fear, but it was total fear, no way to defend themselves. You know, I'm picturing this as I'm reading it, being the cast member. Somebody come in and just strips me of everything that I have to take care of my family, and they walk away, and who knows when they're gonna come back the next time. And I got my wife and my daughter there, and me, and they can just have their way, and there's nothing I can do.
Mm.
You know, you into it, ain't you, Eric? Looking at you, it. You know, imagine being in a situation like that.
Well, isn't that the same thing they going through now?
Yeah, with Hamas, they just took them to the other side. Remember, they didn't send all the women back, in case you didn't know. They sent some of the people back. And some of the women that came back over here said the reason they didn't send a lot of the women back because they were raping those women and they didn't want them to get back over to Israel and tell it. Yeah, and they probably raping some of the men too. But those people they didn't release. They still got those people. But here what they did is they came in their home and did whatever they wanted to do, and they came back and they went home, and whenever they wanted appetite again, they just went back and did what they wanted to do, and the men couldn't do anything. Because you know what? If you get involved, I'm going to kill them. So just let me have my way with them. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm looking at the number, the total number was 40,000, they said. It's
Among
40,000
four- Among
Yeah.
40,000
Amount, 40
people,
among
not a
40,000.
spear or weapon was
Was
found
found.
among none of them. Yep. I mean, they can waltz up there, give me all your food. Now, I ain't gonna knock the door down because I want you to get sick because I'll be back next week. I don't want you sick. I need you healthy. You know, we are really blessed to be in this time. We got a Second Amendment. We can teach without somebody coming in here locking us up. Yeah. These people, when they heard from God, they heard from the prophets. They didn't have an opportunity like we did. So the reason for this, BJ, was because they chose new gods. So let's go back to verse 2 of chapter 5. Let's see what was worthy to sing to God. We're going to flip back and forth. Two things happen here. Verse 2 of chapter 5.
When leaders lead in Israel, when the people willingly offer themselves, bless the Lord.
Two things happen. What happened?
When the leaders lead,
Okay, and what else happened?
and when the people willingly offer themselves.
So
the-
when the leaders lead and when the people themselves willingly offer,
Repent.
the people volunteered. Actually, the leaders volunteered.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see here is when we have a community of people where leaders are leading, people will follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what we see here. Very important for the church today. You know, one example we said here, which it didn't have to be, but we chose not to get paid as pastors. And then we had people here that's doing some work that are offered to pay for certain tasks, and they followed what the elders did here. They didn't want to get paid. You know, if I had to tell some people, hey, no, I got to give you the money back for this because this cost you for this specific thing, but they didn't want to get paid. You know, if leaders set the example and set it right and be consistent in it, people follow. That's what we see here. The people willing to honor whatever they have to give to God so they can bless the leadership. Yes, ma'am? Okay. Verse 9.
My heart is with the rulers of Israel who offered themselves willingly with the people, bless the Lord.
Got it? Now,
Verse
she's,
2,
remember, she's singing. She's singing from verse 1 to verse 2, and then we jump over to verse 9. She says what?
My heart is with the rulers of Israel.
It was the rulers of Israel that her heart was with, the leaders, the governors, the commanders. Because what they did motivated the people to follow. Look at verse 4. Deborah was a leader. Of chapter 5, verse 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the field of Edom, the earth quaked, the heavens also dripped,
Mm-hmm.
even the clouds dripped water.
Mm.
Mm.
So it says, Lord, when you went out from Seir, you marched from the field of Edom, the earthquake,
Mm-hmm.
the heavens dripped, it dripped. Also, even the clouds dripped water. Deborah considered herself a mother. You had mentioned, who was that mentioned that earlier?
I did.
Paul, if I can get somebody to go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7, see what Paul says, how he's taking care of those people. Mm-hmm.
But we proved to be gentle among you, as a nursing mother tenderly cares for her own children.
This is a picture of Deborah. And Paul, it was not a, you know what, anybody here know what an effeminate is? An effeminate? Okay, Paul is not portraying to be an effeminate here. As a man who have ways like a woman or like a woman. Okay, so when Paul says, read that again.
I got it. But we were gentle among you, just as a nursing mother cherished her only
Got it.
children.
Now, you mothers here understand what that is when it comes to your children, okay? Deborah had this attitude when it came to Israel. Paul had that attitude when it came to the Gentiles. You know where they get this character from? Huh? They get it from God. Let's go to Isaiah 49:15.
I got it.
Hmm.
The verse reads, can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son of her womb?
Mm.
Surely they may forget, yet I will not forget you.
God said he won't forget. That he knows a mother cares. But he
Mhm.
said they may forget, but he won't forget. That's the kind of care that Deborah had. That's the kind of care that Paul had, and that character came from God. This is why I said last week that Deborah loved Israel.
Mhm.
She was a judge, and she judged in civil and political affairs. Back to Judges, chapter 5. Anybody got any questions or comments? So what happens when the leaders were stirred up?
When leaders stir up.
Let's read verse 13 through 15.
Then the survivors came down, the people against the nobles. Where did the nobles come from? The Lord came down for the men, for me against the mighty. From Ephraim were those whose roots were in Amalek. After you, Benjamin, with your people. From Machir rulers came down, and from Zebulun, those who bear the recruiter's staff. And the princes of Azakar were with Deborah. As Azakar, so was Barak, sent into the valley under his command. Among the divisions of Reuben, there were great resolve of the heart.
Okay. Now,
I
I'm going
think
to just
yeah.
commentate this here, okay? The tribes.
Mhm.
We're going to follow you, Deborah. We're going to fight with you, Barak. We're going to follow you, Deborah. We're going to fight with Barak. We talked about last week who actually was the fighter here. Barak, okay? They were saying if you're going to obey God, we will as well. Remember, they were leaders, okay? But the leaders' hearts were stirred up. The people know it. If you want to manifest the will of God, as you lead well. But on the other hand, it is God who is powerful. It is God who's loving. It is God who's compassionate, and he's raising up godly leaders. I want to look at 15b.
But as Issachar, so
Yeah.
was Barak.
Yeah, read all the way down to Reuben.
As Issachar, so was Barak, sent into the valley under his command. Among the divisions of Reuben, there was great resolve of heart.
Okay, what does that mean when it says among the Reuben that was resolved with heart?
The resolve strong.
Mm-mm.
They were the ones who
Failed heart.
they didn't
They didn't go.
they were
didn't
one
go.
of the they were one
It
of
must
the
say everybody got the invitation, but everybody didn't
Right,
go.
they didn't
Right.
go.
But the thing about, let me tell you something about Reuben. Well, maybe we should go. Let's have a meeting and talk about it. God has called these people over to fight Hazar. You know, God has gifted us. We do recognize him as God, but I don't know. I think we just sit and chill. That's what happened with Reuben. You know, God's own people. Spiritual warfare, physical warfare. Do y'all know every time we come together as a church to sing, it's warfare? And I'm gonna share something with you. Satan is not after me. Now he is, and somebody took my markers.
Then took you what?
Satan is not after me, or you, or us. like that. Okay. Satan is after the church. Okay. When we go into Vietnam, we're not after one person. We're after Vietnam. And don't ever forget that. Satan will encapsulate us as he attacks the church. Reuben didn't get that. The enemy, Hazar, was after the whole nation, Israel. Reuben decided to have a meeting to see, do we want to go and participate? They greatly thought about it. Imagine Satan being after the church, and I'm a part of the church, and the church is getting attacked, and I decide to come over and have a meeting to see if I want to be involved with it, with y'all or not.
After they get done with us and we gonna come after me.
Well, the thing about it is they're on the winning road because they're singing the song now. And Deborah said, the Lord has given them over into your hands. So whatever the Lord has given me over here, wife, kids, husbands, job, money, houses that I'm going to be busy with over here, I'm going to hold on to this little old bit that I got, and I'm going to lose this victory that God is going to give me. That's an impossibility. And, you know, I wonder sometimes, and just a thought, if it was a question, if people just not going to get to heaven, is God going to say, you saved this little old bit that you couldn't bring in here with you? You forfeited this? The husband, the wife, the car, the job I gave you, the kids, you held on to that and forfeited it for this? And you discussed it when you knew? When the church come together, it's spiritual warfare. This was war that God called them to, but they said, we're going to go discuss it. That's what it means by great resolve of the heart. They decide to discuss it. So some tribes offered themselves and some didn't. They thought about it. They were convicted. They conversed about it. Should we go? No. This is the believer who realizes there's a call to accomplish in their lives. This is the believer that knows they're in God. They know that the greatest reward is heaven, but they hold on to the small part for now. This is the believer that knows there's so much ahead. But you know what? To join the church and worship is only a thought. I think about it. That's what I meant a while back when I say the church coming together it's not an option. Now some of us, not us, we take it as an option, but it's not an option. These people took an option that they didn't have. What you got? So this is a person, they wouldn't deny that there's more. This is even a brother that says, you know what? I was convicted by your message. And you won't see him again for another 2 or 3 weeks. That's Reuben.
You mean that's the tribe of Reuben,
Yeah.
the whole gang?
It was the leaders who made the decision. Should we go? And the people followed. But if you didn't know before tonight, when we come together, it's not just singing and preaching. This is spiritual warfare. Yeah. What you got, PJ?
Well, I'm just thinking about Reuben all the way back to Genesis, how Reuben was himself. He slept with his father's concubine and did things that he did himself. that just falls into his own tribe.
Let's go to Genesis 49:4. We read about Reuben in what verse?
What? Where in Judge? I mean, in
Yeah,
Judges?
yeah, you got it. No, you got it. Go to Genesis 49:4.
Okay.
Read it.
Well, I'll start 3. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, preeminence in dignity and preeminence in power, uncontrollable as water.
Now, you can stop right there.
I know.
This is a sermon right here. Now, go back and read. Stay right there, but go back and read Judges chapter 5, verse 6b. No, read, just read, yeah, just start at verse 6. Yeah, 16, I'm sorry, read verse 16.
Why did you sit among the sheepfolds to hear the piping for the flock?
Now, check this out. They heard the calling of the sheep. They heard a different voice. There was a different priority. There was a different invitation, and they took that one instead. Hey, you look like you're in a daze. Come over here. You know, they got a call, but now they're getting a different call. There was great searching of the heart, but their heart was hijacked by other things. So they abandoned what God wanted them to do. And as BJ just read, Reuben has an interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't experienced this, any of us, just raise your hand. I'll make it plain to you. You ever took a rock and just threw it across the water, and when it hit the water, what did it do?
Skip.
I mean, what did it do to the water? It splashed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it rippled, and the ripples went out. You could see it, the water moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, what happens to the water?
Dissipate.
It go back like nothing ever happened. That's Reuben.
Uncontrollable.
They heard the call. They got another call, the whining, okay, the piping of the sheep. It means whining, okay, of other people. They searched their hearts again. They thought about it. They had a meeting. Their hearts were stirred up. They was convinced. And after a while, they went back like they didn't never even get a call. Like water. That's what he meant in Genesis. They are as unstable as water. Like if you throw a rock on it and it splashes up like something happened, all of a sudden it's like you can even tell a rock hit it. That's where their hearts were. That was that Genesis passage that you brought up. Their interest was piqued. Genesis 49:4.
49, 3 and 4.
Something interrupted him. Something stirred it up. Something piqued their interest. But it didn't take long for them to go back the same way they were before anything struck them. It's like nobody ever even touched that water. It's like God hadn't even called them. That's what happened to Reuben. Some believers are like that today. Friends, hey, come over here. Jobs. You can make more money over here. That's the piping of the sheep. Satan is not just coming here. Satan have what he called foundations. He's already laid them throughout the world. He has foundations. We have our foundation in Christ, and our foundation is founded on the apostles' church. Satan have laid foundations. Higher education, nothing wrong with it, but when it takes the place of the call for the church to come together and warn and fight this spiritual battle, Satan has laid foundations to deter us from getting in this battle cry. Now, when I say Satan is not after you, yeah, he's after you, but you are a part of the church. He's trying to mess the church up. To get you out of the church and let the church go is a futile fight. So for us to think that he's after me, just me, that's part of the foundation that he done laid. the piping of the sheep, the interests of the world. And I say that the next time, and we're gonna stop here, the next time that we have an opportunity to come together and sing with the saints, because we're gonna talk about singing, how when I'm just gonna point this here and I'm gonna close it down. Read chapter 5, verse 3. And I'm gonna shut it down because we need to finish looking at these
Here
other.
we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Hear, O king, give ears, O princes. Even I will sing to the Lord. I will sing praises to the Lord God of
Now
Israel.
we're gonna come back and visit this when we come back. She's singing a song after the battle. Who is she singing to? No. She's singing to God, but who she say, hear, oh, who?
Hear, O king. Kings.
Who's kings?
Who's kings?
No, that's
What book are we in?
Judges.
Who's kings?
The king, judges, the kings that are,
There is no judges yet.
no, there's all the kings that are established.
Yeah, but there's no kings in
Yes.
Israel yet. So she's talking to the Canaanite kings.
Kings, yes.
Got it?
Mhm.
So in her song, she's saying, hear, O kings, hear, O rulers.
Yes.
Yeah, see,
Uh-huh.
this is what we did. But for us, when we come together, it's like us, and I know they can hear us next door, right? It's like us opening this door, and it's like us opening that door, and we're singing about the Lord and how he has the victory, and doom is coming, and it's their doom coming, and they hear us singing. Yeah, it's our worship to the Lord. Imagine if any of us wasn't saved and we not right next door, we'd be singing loud too. And we was talking about, Lord, how you gonna destroy our enemies, and they know they're not saved. We're actually singing, "Hear, O hairdressers." Got it?
Yeah.
So they're saying, "Hear, O King," and so they're actually singing this song to the Lord, so they can hear about them, what happened to them. Y'all see it in there? Israel don't have any kings yet. We're still in the book of Judges. And so while she's singing this song, she's singing what happened in chapter 4. She's threshing out in a commentary what happened in chapter 4, and she's letting them hear it. They are the enemy. But we're going to come back and visit this. It gets good here because Reuben wasn't the only tribe that didn't go. They were just the only tribe that thought about it.
Nah.
Some of them didn't even think about it.
Followed his lead.
Yeah,
Followed their lead.
No, it would have had nothing to do with Reuben.
no. Yeah,
You got
one is on the other side of Jordan.
You got some of was filtered with oil, and you got some that was worried about their merchant, their trade embargo.
Coast.
You know, the things that God,
Yes.
what I'm saying
The
is,
ships.
with the others, the thing that kept them from going was the things that God had gave them. God gave, look at, God gave me my wife. God gave me my children. God gave me my job. God gave me my house. God gave me my cars. God even gave me my life. And I'm going to tell you something. God can take my wife. God can take my kids. God can take my car, my house. If those things hey, I know I'm saved, and God know I know I'm saved. If those things keep me from the one who gave them to me, just like he gave them to me, he can take them. That was the shameful part about the rest of them, which we're gonna get to those songs. Because the question we see here in verse 16 is why? Why? And when somebody asks you why, it's gonna be like, you did this for that? That's, if you really look at it, starting at verse 16, just go home and read it on your own, about Dan and about Gad and about Asher. The question with all three of them is why? Usually when somebody asks you why, that means that was a dumb thing you did. You can go. Good job. Yeah. When somebody asks you why, usually you did a dumb thing. Why'd you do that? Look, verse 16, what's the first word?
Why
that-
did
yeah.
you sit among the sheepfold?
Yeah, why did you listen to their voices? Oh, this just doesn't stay here. This happens among the church. I ask people sometimes, what happened to you today? Why didn't you come to church? You know what they say? I've heard, I decided to take a break. Really? There was nothing wrong with Reuben. Reuben just said, I'm going to take a break. We thought about it. Any questions? All right, that's all I got for tonight.
Mm.